Hello there my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. So today we're going to be talking about the Mandalorian and Grogu. We have a couple of very exciting updates, and then we're going to dive into a big discussion about Pedro Pascal. There has been a lot of chitter chatter and a big question which I'm going to address because Bespin Bulletin has answered this. But first, Din Djarin body double Brendan Wayne has just spilled a few beans about the movie in a new interview with Star Wars Sessions. Big shout out to those two, friends of the channel. And during the interview, Brendan wasn't afraid to talk about how excited he is for this. But there are three big takeaways. The first is him addressing the criticism that the movie looks exactly like the show. His response is there was actually quite a lot of on-location filming for the movie, and much of it is not reflected in the trailer. I think that's very good news. We may have been preemptive in judging this trailer too harshly. It was just a teaser, and there wasn't much dialogue. I keep my fingers crossed that the final trailer in a few months is going to look a lot more visually spectacular and give us a bit more information about the film. But this revelation from Brendan Wayne is a first, because according to Google and according to IMDb, the Mando movie was filmed on stagecraft, but now we're hearing word there was some on-location filming, so fingers crossed. He also describes the movie as action-packed. These are similar words used by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, but one of the biggest revelations is there is quite a lot of Zeb. We saw him in the original trailer at Celebration, we saw him in this teaser trailer taking out stormtroopers, but there is going to be more of him than you think, and that is so exciting as a Rebels fan. And not just this, Matt Leonard, a legendary stunt actor, played Zeb physically on set, so he's not entirely CG. So it's a bit different to the way they brought him to life briefly in Mando's third season, but this is super exciting. The visual realism is going to be better, it's truer to the classic Star Wars style, and technology's come a long way in the last 2 years. But he's still being voiced by Steve Bloom, so you get that thick Australian accent, even though Steve is from Santa Monica. But as you guys know, from D. Bradley Baker to James Arnold Taylor, Star Wars has a long tradition of voice actors performing characters with accents different from their own. And to me, as a Star Wars Rebels mega fan, get it? Mega fan, Zeb Orrelios is what I call a comfort character. Now that he's getting action sequences, it's exciting that they're going to use both CG and practical, so hopefully it looks great. And so now my friends, let's move on to a more contentious Mandalorian and Grogu issue. As you're probably aware at this point, there has been a lot of backlash towards the Mandalorian and Grogu trailer, and while I don't agree with all of the criticisms, many of them are valid. I understand how fans are feeling about Lucasfilm and the overall apathy, the frustration, I get it. However, there is one criticism that is particularly poignant. Everyone wants a piece of Pedro Pascal. There seems to have been a shift in the last year or so, where people went from loving this guy to then switching up and criticizing that he's in everything. The oversaturation argument. He's in the Fantastic Four, The Last of Us, Materialists, Eddington, The Mandalorian, and so on and so forth. Whether you love him or you don't want to see any more of him on the big screen, Pedro is experiencing his moment in the spotlight, and that has led fans to one major question concerning the upcoming Mando movie. Are we going to see Din Djarin without his helmet? Are we going to see Pedro's face? Now my first instinct is of course we are. The first Star Wars movie in years, with Pedro Pascal's name attached to it, he's going to voice Din like he always does, but of course they're going to use Pedro as a marketing pull. And if you lure general cinema goers with the promise of Pedro, you're gonna have to give them what they want. You're going to have to show them his face, just like they did in Season 1 and Season 2. But now we run into the issue of what's going on in-universe, because at this point, post-Season 3, Din showing his face doesn't make sense. The main reason he went to Mandalore in the last season, the Mines of Mandalore, was to be redeemed in the eyes of the tribe, the Children of the Watch, for removing his helmet in the first place, even if it was to save his son. Din accepted his punishment and went through the arduous, orthodox process of finding redemption. The third season made it very difficult for Din to now want to remove his helmet, unless there has been a change of rules, which was speculated about following the conversation between Bo-Katan, the one who walks both paths, and the Armorer, the embodiment of tribe orthodoxy. Is it possible with the reunification of Mandalore that the rules are now more flexible for the tribe? And are they going to confirm this in the upcoming movie? And a couple of years ago, Jon Favreau alluded to the fact Din Djarin might remove his helmet again in the future, maintaining that Season 3 is all about balancing identity with growth. And it's not just Din who's undergone this change, it's Bo-Katan, and perhaps most importantly, the Armorer, who, like I said, is the maintainer of tribe tradition. And despite all of its flaws, one of the biggest and most important takeaways from the third season is how even the most rigid, orthodox belief systems can evolve when faced with humanity, shared purpose, and lived experience. Throughout the series up until that point, the Armorer embodied the most conservative, tradition-bound interpretations of Mandalorian creed. She enforces the Children of the Watch's strict code, and deviation means expulsion, no ands, ifs or buts. It was only because Din Djarin could prove the Mines of Mandalore still existed that he was given a second chance. In many ways, the Armorer represents the parental and ancestral generation within a belief system, rooted in history, cautious of change, and wary of outsiders. But Bo-Katan's arc in Season 3 broke through all of that. Seeing the mythosaur and relaying the information back to the tribe obviously helped all of that, but across the season, hearing Bo-Katan explain what really happened during the Purge, seeing how much Mandalore meant to her, the Armorer grew to respect Bo, and saw her as a leader who could bridge the gap between the different factions, those who remove the helmets and those who don't. And so maybe this is the basis for why Din might remove his helmet again. The rules might have changed, the Armorer's view of who is a true Mando has changed. So I kind of anticipate at least a brief moment where we see Pedro's face. And did you know a year ago, Bespin Bulletin already answered this question. They'd heard that Pedro was on set, and it's very likely he filmed a couple of scenes helmetless. Here's what they said. Due to Pascal's jam-packed schedule, many have wondered if he would only be able to provide voiceover work for the character and wouldn't be required to film scenes in the suit. Well, now they have confirmation that time and cast-sensitive scenes were reportedly filmed back in 2024, and it was a very tight shoot. It was in between him filming scenes for The Last of Us and the Fantastic Four First Steps. Now, it could have just been for a promo, for D23 or Celebration, but it has been reported since that Lucasfilm had been pressing and urging for this shoot. It makes me think that the scene in question could be for the climax of the movie or the end, but it had to be Pedro in the suit, not Brendan Wayne and not Lateef Crowder, just for a couple of very brief scenes. Was it for Din Djarin without his helmet, and is it something super secret they're not going to reveal until the film, that's not going to be in any of the trailers, but is going to be saved for when you actually go to see it? We'll have to wait and see, but this is the first official bit of confirmation that Pedro did film something for the movie. Well, what do you guys make of all of this? Do you want to see more Pedro Pascal in The Mandalorian and Grogu, Din Djarin without his helmet? And share your thoughts about all of the other updates. If you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.